undue signs the economy is slowing down. That's a key read on manufacturing suffering its worst drop since last summer. Does this worry, this overall environment? Congressman Chris Van Hollen, of course, the top Democrat on the Budget Committee. Congressman, good to have you. Dicey environment. Do you think we're slipping into something, Congressman, something worse, a slowdown, maybe even a recession?
Well, obviously, the European situation has been very worrisome, and if the contagion were to jump across the Atlantic, it obviously would have a negative impact on the economy. Ben Bernanke, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, has been watching that, and he has said very recently that the Federal Reserve would be prepared to take countervailing actions. But the reality is we need to focus on what we can with respect to the American economy, which is why we should take up the President's jobs bill, which is still sitting on the shelf here in the House of Representatives, and take other actions like pass the transportation bill, because in 2 weeks, the authorization to invest in our transportation system will expire. That
but is it bigger than that, though? Do you wonder, you mentioned, sir, the Federal Reserve provided this $267 billion gift yesterday, this Operation Twist. I don't want to get arcane, but it was more stimulus from the Fed to buy Treasury notes and securities in the market and try to goose this puppy, and it's not working. Big sell-off again today. Big fears that U.S. banks are about to be downgraded again today. You almost get a sense that we're sinking fast here. What do you think?
Well, I don't think we're sinking fast. I think Europe is obviously fighting a really tough problem, and they need to get on top of it in a systematic and sustained way. And obviously, the Germans are key to that. Angela Merkel is key to that. Hopefully, they'll be able to put together a plan to begin to stem the tide of uncertainty. But we have limited leverage, as you know, Neil, over what happens in Europe. So we have to do everything we can to shore up our own economy right here at home.
Then let's talk about what you guys could do. And you've always tried to find a middle ground to try to keep the dialogue going forward. And I think people who either agree or disagree would commend you for that, as do I. But I wonder whether we're getting the hints of a middle ground deal, sir. And by that I mean that this willingness on the part of some Republicans, and I could be wrong on that, Grover Norquist might say otherwise later in the show, to look at closing tax loopholes, special allowances and breaks, and sign on to that, not necessarily with signing on to moving tax rates north again, would be enough to get you and your fellow Democrats to the table on some of these cuts. But it's got to be mutual. In other words, that you both, jump off that fiscal cliff at the same time. Is that where we stand? Is that what this is about?
Well, I hope our Republican colleagues are moving in that direction. My guess is Grover Norquist will tell you that everybody is firm on the pledge, and they still oppose the idea of even 1 penny of new revenue going to deficit reduction. I hope you hear otherwise from him. But you're absolutely right, Neil. In order for us to deal with these issues, we have to do 2 things. 1, get the economy in gear right now, because every day you have a soft economy, not only are people out of work, but the deficit gets worse. Second, you need to deal with the long-term deficit situation in order to ensure long-term economic growth. To do that, you need a combination of cuts, not today and deep, but steadily over a period of time, and we support those cuts. We did $1 trillion of cuts on a bipartisan basis last August. There are additional cuts and reforms that need to be made.
But your Republican colleagues, Congressman, say they're willing to entertain this pact. Not all being quoted here. But here's what they fear, that Democrats are going to hoodwink them, that they're going to agree to cuts, but they're not going to do their part of the bargain. So then Republicans will have egg on their face with the base by agreeing to what is a tax hike to some, just a revenue closer to others. But by and large, they're going to get snookered, and they fear you're going to snooker them. What do you say to them?
Well, no, I support the framework that Simpson-Bowles, the bipartisan Simpson-Bowles Commission, came up with, which says that we need to reduce our deficit. So the cuts would go to reduce our deficits. The additional revenue would also go to deficit reduction. And our argument has been we need a balanced approach, because if you say from the beginning that you're not going to get 1 penny of additional revenue, it does mean you have to whack everybody else harder. That's why you'd have to transfer more cost to seniors on Medicare. Median income, $23,000. I don't think that we should be asking seniors to take on additional risk and cost.
But you think we're closer to something? You think we're closer to something?
Well, I'm not sure we are.
Okay.
I think Grover Norquist may be able to report to you on his meeting. But the reality is, Neil, 98% of House Republicans have signed a pledge. And under the interpretation of the pledge, if you close one tax loophole or get rid of one subsidy, you cannot use that dollar to reduce the deficit under the pledge. That's a violation of the pledge. Hopefully, maybe Norquist will be changing his interpretation, which would be great. It'd be healthy. Thank you. All right. Well, that'd be great.
All right. Congressman Chris Van Hollen, always good seeing you. Be well.
Likewise. Thank you.
All right. The